There is a quiet, crushing exhaustion that comes when you start over for the 100th time. You promise yourself that today will be the day you finally stick to the plan. Yet, the exact second the work loses its novelty and becomes a heavy, unglamorous grind, you retreat back into the familiar warmth of distraction. You know exactly what I mean, don't you? You know the heavy weight of regret that settles in your chest the morning after you chose the easy way out. For Elias, this cycle was not just a feeling. It was a physical landscape he woke up to every single day. He stood at the threshold of a massive, dimly lit warehouse. The air inside was thick with dust and the stale scent of neglected time. Stretching out before him, reaching up into the shadowy rafters, were thousands of heavy, unorganized wooden crates. They were stacked haphazardly, precariously leaning against one another. These crates were the physical weight of his life. Every unsent email, every abandoned fitness routine, every unread book, and every half-finished project he had ever started with fiery motivation and abandoned at the first sign of friction. Elias looked at the towering walls of wood and felt a profound, paralyzing sickness in his stomach. The scale of the chaos was agonizing. His mind immediately began to flood with the loud, frantic whispers of overwhelm. It's too much. It's too late. Where do I even begin? He was standing at the bottom of a mountain of his own making, and the mere thought of moving a single, heavy crate made his muscles ache with preemptive exhaustion. He didn't want to work. He wanted to be saved from the work. Just inside the heavy iron doors of the warehouse, contrasting violently with the splintered wood and cold concrete, sat a plush, deep red velvet armchair. It was sagging in the middle, worn smooth by years of use, yet it looked undeniably soft. It was the physical manifestation of tomorrow. It was the trap of cheap comfort, waiting patiently to catch him the moment the work became too hard. Elias deliberately looked away from the chair. He forced himself deeper into the shadows of the warehouse, walking toward a particularly chaotic pile of crates. He gripped the rough, splintered edges of a box resting at the bottom of a stack. He braced his legs, took a breath, and pulled. The moment the crate lifted off the floor, the cruel reality of the task set in. It wasn't just heavy, it was awkwardly shaped. The rough wood bit into the soft skin of his palms. Dust plumed into the air, catching in his throat and stinging his eyes. Instantly, the fiery cinematic burst of motivation he had woken up with evaporated. In its place, a dull, throbbing psychological resistance began to pound against his skull. Why does this have to be so difficult, his mind pleaded, desperate for an exit. Maybe I am doing this wrong. Maybe I need to buy a better planning system first. I didn't sleep well enough last night for this kind of heavy lifting. I should just rest today and attack this with full energy on Monday. He was experiencing the exact, excruciating friction of discipline, the quiet, unglamorous suffering of doing what is required when every fiber of your being is screaming for an escape. He stood there, knees trembling under the weight of just one crate out of thousands. His gaze instinctively drifted back toward the entrance. The velvet armchair seemed to glow in the dim light. It looked incredibly inviting. The gravity of comfort began to pull at him, a seductive, heavy force, far stronger than the fragile gravity of his ambitions. He held the crate for another agonizing 10 seconds, his mind frantically negotiating with his willpower, rationalizing why quitting right now was actually a smart decision. With a heavy, hollow thud, Elias dropped the crate back onto the concrete floor. He surrendered. He dusted off his hands, turned his back on the towering chaos, and walked slowly toward the velvet armchair. As he sank into its deep cushions, a massive sigh escaped his lips. The immediate rush of relief washed over him, a warm, numbing anesthetic that silenced the overwhelming demands of the warehouse. He closed his eyes, safely insulated from the pain of effort. But as the minutes bled into hours, the warm relief of the velvet began to sour. The softness of the chair didn't feel like a well-earned rest anymore. It felt like quicksand. The quiet of the warehouse was no longer peaceful. It was deafening, echoing with the absolute silence of wasted time. Elias looked down at his hands resting on his lap. They were clean, free from splinters and dirt, but they felt incredibly weak, empty. He looked back toward the towering mountains of wooden crates. By retreating to the chair, the chaos hadn't disappeared. The work was still there, waiting. In fact, in the creeping shadows of the warehouse, the leaning towers seemed to have grown taller, casting long, dark silhouettes that threatened to collapse and bury him entirely. Here, Elias was forced to confront the insidious lie of unearned comfort. It promises you a safe haven from the storm, but instead, it delivers paralysis. A suffocating, heavy panic began to rise in his chest. The choice before him was not a choice between suffering and a pain-free life. It was a choice of which pain he would endure. He could choose the heavy, constructive pain of discipline that builds a person, or the dull, degrading gravity of regret that slowly erodes them into nothing. He realized, with a brutal and absolute clarity, that the velvet armchair was not a sanctuary. It was a tomb. If he stayed here, insulated by softness, he would successfully avoid the sharp pain of the rough wood and the exhausting burn of the heavy lifting. But he would inevitably suffer a far worse, incurable agony, the slow, rotting ache of a life entirely unlived. Elias gripped the armrest of the chair. The velvet seemed to fight him, its deep, sagging cushions actively trying to pull him back down into apathy. With a primal, agonizing surge of raw willpower, he dragged himself out of the quicksand of comfort and stood up. His legs felt heavy. His mind screamed at him to sit back down, but his vision was suddenly, violently clear. He didn't run. He walked with slow, deliberate, heavy steps back into the dust and the shadows. He found the exact crate he had dropped. He didn't wait for a miraculous wave of motivation to return. He finally understood that it wouldn't. He gripped the splintered wood, willingly embraced the sharp friction in his palms, and lifted. It was agonizing. It was completely unglamorous. But as he carried that heavy burden across the floor and set it down, the suffocating pressure in his chest cracked, letting in a single, vital sliver of light. He had won the war against himself. Elias did not empty the warehouse that afternoon. The towering, precarious shadows of his past avoidance did not magically disappear in a single montage of effort. But as he stacked the first row of crates, breathing heavily, his hands calloused and covered in dust, something fundamental had shifted. He had stopped waiting for the work to feel easy. He had finally accepted that the friction was not a warning sign to stop. It was the exact, non-negotiable price of admission for a life of his own making. We spend so much of our time waiting for the heavy lifting of life to suddenly feel light. You wait for the morning where waking up early doesn't hurt, or for the day when focusing on your most demanding work feels entirely effortless. You wait for the perfect wave of motivation to carry you over the mountain of your responsibilities. But the profound truth is this: the friction never disappears. The velvet armchair of cheap comfort will always sit right by the door, pulling at you the exact second things get hard. You cannot escape the pain of this life. You can only choose its flavor. You can choose the sharp, constructive pain of daily discipline, the pain that builds your self-respect and shapes your future, rough brick by agonizing brick. Or you can choose the dull, suffocating ache of the armchair, the pain of sitting in comfortable paralysis while your potential slowly rots away into regret. Discipline is not a punishment. It is the ultimate act of self-preservation. It is the refusal to let your life become a forgotten warehouse of abandoned dreams. If you saw a piece of your own unspoken struggle in Elias today, and you are exhausted from retreating into the temporary warmth of distraction, subscribe to this channel. Join us as we continue to map out the heavy, rewarding path of true discipline. And before you close this video, drop a comment below and tell me, what is the heavy crate, the difficult task, the neglected habit, or the hard truth that you are finally choosing to live today? Do not wait for it to feel easy. Go lift the weight.